Good afternoon, everyone. I'm Raymond Lam, Knowledge Officer for the Australian Water Partnership, and welcome to today's webinar, Introduction to Kini. Presenting the webinar today will be Karen Delfo, who is the Executive Director for the International Water Centre Alumni Network. Before we get started, I'll just go over a few items so you know how to participate in this webinar. If you have a question, please type it into the questions pane of the GoToWebinar panel on the right side of your screen. You can send them at any time during the presentation, and we will address all of them during the Q&A session at the end of this webinar. I would now like to hand the webinar over to Karen Delfo.
Hi, everybody, and just want to apologize that there's not going to be an opportunity for people to ask questions with their voices. So if you do have a question, please do type it into the pane that Raymond was talking about on the right-hand side of your screen. What I'm going to do is try to address them as we go through the webinar. However, if I can't get to them, I will address them at the end of the webinar. And I hope that there's going to be some space for a little bit of discussion because I've posed some questions for you. And with that, I'm just going to jump in and get started. So thank you for joining. And I'm going to be introducing the Kini initiative and really speaking about ways that it can benefit the AWP partnership. Because this is an area we're moving into with Kini, and I think that there's a lot more opportunity here. So introducing Kini. Kini was an initiative that was launched in February of this year, so it's actually quite a new initiative. And it's a joint initiative of the Australian Water Partnership and the International Water Centre Alumni Network. An overarching aim that we have is to connect practitioners and share knowledge across the Indo-Pacific to support best practices in water management. So let me just sort of back up and let you know, first of all, what Kini means. Kini is the Malaysian word for current, and it's about new information, emerging information. And we've found that a lot of people who are interested in learning about water management have had a difficult time accessing and digesting the brilliant 70-page to 700-page documents that come out that are just chock full of knowledge. And so what we wanted to do is supplement these knowledge products with a different approach. So Kini looks to address water security concerns, support water reform, and one of the kind of fundamental tenets of Kini is that understanding the resource is key to improve decision making. So we really explore how that's been done both in Australia and throughout the Indo-Pacific region. So far, no questions. This is good, right? Who's our target audience? Our target audience is water management practitioners. So what do I mean by that? I'm not talking about the CEO level people as much as I'm talking about the people who are out there in the field doing the work. It's the people who are making the decisions on a day-to-day basis and really trying to implement the initiative across the Indo-Pacific region, including Australia. And there's really an opportunity for individuals and partners to engage directly with practitioners throughout the region using Kini. So I just want to highlight that point because a lot of times it's difficult to really just have that individual one-on-one connection with people, or you may meet them at a conference and you may be interested in continuing a conversation and then lives get busy, especially this time of year, and you can't always follow up. And Kini is meant to provide a space for a dialogue. It's not meant to replace face-to-face connection, but it is meant to supplement that through continued learning and continued connection. All right, next slide is about our approach. So many of you are probably familiar with the variety of platforms that have been launched with very high price tags that have very sophisticated functionality that people don't entirely always go to. So we wanted to do something different. Instead of having a platform-based approach, we wanted to take a content-based approach. And what does that mean? That means instead of driving people to a platform, we wanted them to go to the existing platforms that they're already going to, whether that's social media or receiving newsletters from organizations that they think provide valuable content, and just have our content appear on that. So the entire focus has been on generating content. Because of this, we have some difficulties in tracking engagement. I'm going to show you in the next slide, I believe, a little bit of our tracking and our metrics. However, just keep in mind that if, for example, somebody reads something on Kini or listens to an interview, shares it on their personal, say, LinkedIn page or Facebook page, and other people have a dialogue around that or engage with that, we can't really see that happening. So it's difficult for us to track how learning is taking place and where that engagement actually is. But we do our best. We try. And we actually believe that it's more valuable to put out good content than it is to be 100% able and accurate in tracking all engagement around Kini. So the content that we generate are a variety of formats. We have long-form interviews in a podcast format, both audio and video. Actually, none of the video ones have been published yet, but stay tuned because they have been recorded and they will be coming soon. We have written Q&As for each of the interviews. We provide blog posts that explore the topics that we discussed during the interview in a bit more detail, just sort of unpacking it a bit, explaining it, providing some resources and links so that people who are interested in sort of engaging with it a little bit more deeply can do so. We also have quotes which are shareable, so if one of our interviewees says something that really inspires, it's nice to pull that out, make that into something that others can see and share and kind of inspire as well in this space. And then we have written resource pages which just explain what the interview is about, what we discuss, provide some background links on it so that you can have a quick glance, or if you maybe didn't quite hear what somebody said or you want to understand a little bit more about that, you can read about it on the resource page and then do some research from there. So I also want to highlight that we didn't just sort of sit around and come up with an idea. What I ended up doing to launch this project was I did quite an intensive research project where I looked at all the academic literature on collaborative knowledge, how people learn, and then I interviewed 14 practitioners across the region about their knowledge needs in the space of water management, how they go about getting that knowledge, which mechanisms and platforms they go to in order to learn, and then really like where were the opportunities in that, where did they get stuck, and what happened with that knowledge? Was it directly applied? So you think about somebody who has a project, they have a particular question on that project, they want to learn more. They want to maybe get some exposure to some narratives that share the story of a case study that explains and unpacks the issue that they're trying to learn more about. Then they'll think about it, apply it through this process of heuristics in their own context, and then from there, hopefully, there's learning that takes place. So I decided instead of putting out these long reports, it would be really valuable to create a multimedia approach, and that's what we've done with Kini. So you see those little social media icons, and we try to do our best to get across all of those. We also work with the International Water Association with their IWA Connect platform, with the Water Network, and we have some budding partnerships with a number of other, mostly in the WASH space, incidentally, but people who are really interested in our content and really interested in sharing it. We also share through a lot of the partners include our interviews and some of the content as well in their newsletter items, including the International Water Center and IceWarm, and of course the Australian Water Partnership, Peter Cullen Trust, these sorts of folks. So people are really positive and enthusiastic about the content that we're putting out, and we're really looking to, with your support, hopefully improve that even more. All right, the next slide is going to show you a little bit of our analytics. So the first one here is the engagement since the platform has launched. And actually, Raymond, you're going to have to make sure that I get this right, but the 5,000 users is the kind of unique users who've gone in. Yeah. The sessions are the people who've gone into the website and spent some time clicking through. And then the actual page views are how many kind of clicks and views have been done. And the bounce rate, I'm not really sure what that's about, but anyway.
What's the percentage of them exiting the website? That's less than 1 minute. Yeah.
Okay. Oh, that's good to know. I didn't realize that. You can also see the countries and the way that people are both accessing using devices as well as the sources that lead them to Kini. There's over 160, well, there are 160 countries that have individuals who are accessing Kini's knowledge. And the primary ones, it's interesting to see, we have Australia, the United States, and Cambodia, India, Sri Lanka. And France is
number 7.
Main number 7. It might be me, actually, since I'm based in France. But I think it's really interesting because we do have a huge breadth of countries. Ralph had suggested that I pull up the statistics and figure out how many people are from the Indo-Pacific region, but we couldn't do that very quickly. So just to say that there are 160 countries that are engaging with this content since, again, it only launched in February this year, so it's still a very new initiative. I also did an analytic snapshot of the last 4 months just to kind of give people an idea of where it's been in terms of the last 4 months with its growth. So you can see that just in the last 4 months, about half of those users have been engaging. Again, it's the last 4 months, I think, represent a real kind of growth stage for Kini. And just it's pretty tremendous because all of this traffic is organic. So we're not putting out paid advertising through Google or through anywhere else to kind of drive people to Kini. We do some paid advertising on Facebook because it's an effective mechanism for getting people to kind of see what's going on. A lot of times, I don't know if anyone's familiar with guerrilla marketing, but you basically have to see something 19 times before your brain actually clicks and says, hey, hang on a second. I should probably check this out. You know, you have to have that exposure. So we found that Facebook is an effective mechanism for doing that. All right, so these are the analytics just for the kini.org.au website, and it doesn't really represent all the rest of the engagement. As I said, it was really difficult to do that. Next, I want to talk about the Kini interviews with AWP partners. I'm just going to flick through and show you each of the interviews that have already been conducted and published. And the first one, our very first interview was with Chris O'Neill, and it was on applied environmental engineering for improved catchment management in India, really focused on communities. The next one was with Peter Sherry, and he spoke about community-based water management approaches in the Pacific. Hugh Polner spoke about valuing water as a framework for identifying water management priorities. Daryl Day's interview was on Australia's Sustainable Development Investment Portfolio and the Nepalese-Australian partnerships to share knowledge and experience. Len Drury's, which was kind of a recent one, he published a tremendous book about mapping groundwater in Myanmar's dry zone, and this coincided with the publication of 35 years of finding in this space. Pretty exciting. And then the next one was Tony Slatcher. He liked it so much he came back for a second interview. So the first one was about, who is the high-level panel on water? How are they set up? What's their mandate? How do they function? What are they up to? And then the second one was quite recently. I think it was a couple weeks ago we published one, which was an update. And I apologize for the sound quality. He was in Mexico in a hotel room with the worst internet connection I've ever experienced. And it was so bad that I had to call him on his cell phone, and then he spoke very close to his cell phone, so it's a bit muffled, but there's some really good information about what the high-level panel on water is up to. And he's even said in another month or so he'd like a third interview, so we'll see what happens. And Mark Pascoe, this interview actually came out today, and this interview is on leadership, partnerships, and collaboration for integrated water management. Each of these interviews runs approximately 1 hour. Some of them are a bit shorter, 45 minutes. The second one with Tony Slatcher is only 20 minutes. But we do take the time to kind of go into these issues in depth, which is it's really a delight for me as an interviewee. And I think the interviewers as an interviewer and the interviewees also really enjoy being able to delve into the complexities of water management and the topics. So looking forward to more coming. Particularly in the space of irrigation, I haven't actually had a lot of opportunity to delve into that. The next slide is about AWP partners on AWP activities. And this is really a focus area for us to move forward as both organizations. We would really like to highlight the AWP activities that AWP partners are doing right now. So coming up very soon, I have already conducted these 4 interviews, and you can read about them here, but they're all quite outstanding. And what they do is they really represent the approach that the Australian Water Partnership is interested in promoting and in showcasing in terms of how it operates. So I'm calling this kind of the new paradigm of international development. And it's about this demand-driven and needs-based approach the Australian Water Partnership really highlights as its key approach. And the principles and values of respect, sharing, inclusion, including gender, and relationship building really come through in these interviews, because that's how these projects have been approached. And the learnings and the key messages are really about, look, what's really going on there. We can't just kind of trample in and, as Chris O'Neill says, leave them holding the baby as we leave. How do we really form a relationship with these countries and with these practitioners? So I think there's a great opportunity, not just for showcasing this Australian approach that we're promoting with the Australian Water Partnership, but also showcasing the amazing individuals who are involved in these projects in a way that I think otherwise it's very difficult for not just practitioners, but the general public to actually access how they're doing their work. So I just want to kind of highlight here that the Kini interviews are great for the AWP to share the knowledge that's being generated, the approaches that are being taken, the values that we're promoting, but also it's a great opportunity for the partners themselves to be able to get thousands of listens and to have that sort of personal exposure. Because when you listen to an interview, it's like being a part of that conversation. That's happening right in your ear. It's like the closest thing to your brain. So it's just a different approach, but we really want to support each of the partners in being able to achieve their communication objectives and to work with Kini to make that happen. So hopefully we can continue to do that. And hopefully those of you who are in on this conference call will also be interested in supporting that sort of approach. Great. Oh, that's not the next slide. Can we see how that might work? There we go.
Is that the next one?
The next one is that Raymond is going to take over and just do a real quick tour of Kini, how it's set up, how it works. So with that, I'm going to pass it on. Back to Raymond.
Right. So as you can see from here, when you come to Kini for the first time, you can see this great homepage banner. And on the top right, you can see your guidelines, intro video, and how-to video. And all our categories are listed down here in these beautiful round icons, which covers sustainable development goals, water security, equity, inclusion, and all the way to environment and livelihoods. Basically, what I wanted to show you today is a snapshot of an interview that we did and how it looks like. So I'm just going to go into Mark Pascoe's interview today that we just went live this morning and show you how it looks like. So basically, the post is broken up into an introduction section over here. I just use the highlighter spotlight tool on top here. And if you scroll down just a bit, you can see the SoundCloud video, which is the full interview that we did with Mark Pascoe. So you just have to hit the play button and you can hear his full interview. You also have an option to download the interview if you want, so that you can listen it in your car or anytime you want, wherever you are, on any device. Besides that, we have the interview sections. It's basically the full interview broken up into individual sections that we found would be key and delivers lots of insights for those busy people like most partners are. They don't have time to listen to the full interview, so they would rather listen to the interesting bits and chunks of the interview. So basically, you just choose the ones that interest you most and you hit the play button. And you also have the option of downloading the interview using this button on the left here. If you scroll down further, you come to the additional resources button, which is more about more information that talks about the interview in more detail. And If you go down further, you'll come down to the last section, which is the image quotes that we develop in-house about the interview itself. Some very good quotable quotes from the interview, which can be shared on social media and Facebook and Twitter and so on. So the next thing I wanted to share with you guys is how do you contribute and share content on Kini. So basically, once you're logged in to Kini, you go to the top right corner and hit the contribute button. And you can select either you want to post a question or you want to post a piece of content. If you want to post a question to the community, for example, you just hit the question button, type in your question and hit publish, and that's it. And your question would be visible to everyone in the community, and anyone can see it and answer it accordingly. If you want to post a piece of content to Kini, you just select the post option. You simply enter your title, put in a description which is optional, start putting in your text. And the interesting part about this platform is it's so easy to use and user-friendly. If you want to add a file, you just drag the icon over here and you can select a local file from your computer. If you want to add a photo to your post, you just drag it from the top right-hand corner and choose an image. And if you want to add a video, you just select the video icon over here and drag it to the content section. And basically, that's it. So it's a very intuitive platform which is easy to use, and all you have to do is just hit the publish button once you're done, and also upload a thumbnail image of your content. Note that all content that is submitted to Kini would be moderated by the Kini team, which include Karen and myself. So, just to ensure the quality of the content goes into Kini is relevant and suitable to the Kini audience and community. Yeah.
We have had some issues with self-promotion where people want to talk about their products and services where it's not entirely appropriate. So we've tried to create some guidelines, and I've worked directly with those people to kind of let them know that this isn't really the best place for it. But in the next week or so, we'll be launching also a Facebook group where, if somebody wants to talk about their innovative rainwater harvesting system or it's a great place to do that. And if people are interested, they can just really directly engage. But Kini is a repository. Again, it's not a platform, it's a repository. So it's about just holding information and really making sure that's high quality content has been our approach. And if there's discussions that are not entirely completely relevant, they can happen all over the rest of the web. And we're really happy about that happening. And that has been happening. So yeah.
And the last point that I wanted to share with you guys is when you become a partner, please ensure that you edit your profile accordingly and enter as much information as possible in your profile section. Please do submit a profile photo, a relevant profile photo of yourself or your organization, and enter in your bio, which is searchable within the Kini community, and also enter in your skill sets that you can offer. All these tags that you enter are searchable on Kini, so it also is a way to promote your organization as well on the Kini platform. And with that, I will hand it back now over to you, Karen, to continue.
Sure. So again, we have been building this, and we're really hoping that those of you who are on this webinar now or listening to this webinar in the future who have ideas, both of ways that we can improve the content, improve the way that we connect with you as partners, or really just improve the overall approach. We're really interested in hearing from you. I haven't had the opportunity to, live in India and really, work with community to understand how the practitioners access knowledge. I did research, but it's not the same. And I know that there's partners who have incredible insights about ways to just really reach out to those practitioners and engage them in this community. So if you have ideas, I do want to ask you to please engage. So this is my this is my big ask. But if we can go just one slide back. I want to run through quickly the draft strategy for prioritization of content. And this is just going to be really quick, but this is the way we're going to be moving forward. We want to showcase AWP activities and partner areas of specialization. We want to make sure that the approaches that the AWP is taking are going to be reflected in the interviews. Just again, it's about those values shining through. In particular, the AWP has some target regions: Myanmar, the Pacific, India, Vietnam, and the Mekong, and we want to make sure that we're really working with the communities there, the water practitioners in those countries and areas, to figure out how we can support them. We also want to engage in capacity building to support YWP professional development, and so you will see that there are a few interviews that do discuss leadership and do discuss mentoring and do discuss challenges with really having ideas and being able to articulate those and bring them into fruition. Well, how do you support YWPs, young water professionals, to make that happen? And also integration, realizing that water scarcity issues do require an integrated approach. We can't just neglect WASH. We can't neglect the environmental crisis that is around us globally. We can't neglect the social and government approaches and solutions that are emerging and that are really quite innovative. There are some pretty exciting things happening. You have to stay tuned and listen to future interviews, but in particular, what does empowerment of women really, really mean in practice? And there are some examples coming out of local organizations that can illustrate that. And what does inclusion really mean within an organization? We kind of get into the meat of these issues and discuss it. So it's very much in line with the gender equity and social inclusion principles that the AWP is looking to fully implement, not only within its organization, but across the activities. Okay, so then I'm just going to go to the last slide, if I can get there, which is some questions that I'd like to pose to the people who are on this webinar, and that's about, of course, if you have questions or comments, I don't see any questions popping up, that's all right. Please do put them in. Here is one. Yes, it is okay if you have your blogs published, your blog posts published on LinkedIn or in Blogger. If you'd like to copy and paste those into Kini, we are very happy to support that. That's fantastic. We do have other people who do write for different publications, and they have been able to tweak it into the kind of Kini format. So normally it's 400 to 800 words. We like images, we like links, and we would be very delighted if you would please publish your blog posts in with Kini. The questions I'd like to pose to you are about how can Kini better achieve its objectives based on your experience? How can Kini better showcase AWP partners and the sort of Australian approach that we've been speaking about and the values that we'd like to promote? And I think some of you might also have some ideas in terms of strategic alliances that might be beneficial for Kini to increase its both influence and its effectiveness. I want to make sure that, I know from my experience and from my colleagues' experiences, but sometimes I'm just maybe not realizing that there's really a stellar network that's operating in the Mekong that I'm just not aware of, or operating in the Pacific or somewhere else, like that's really doing some amazing things that we should reach out to and engage with. So, okay, there's a question that came in, and it's, can you please talk more a bit about how Kini can be used for particular sub-communities and discussions and networking in particular thematic streams, etc.? And can people set up their own groups? So I'm actually going to have Raymond kick off answering about that. So we have actually set up separate sub-communities.
Yes, it's definitely possible to set up your own group on Kini. We have done that for the Pacific Waste and Water Association. So basically, we set up a private group for them, and we allowed them to invite their own members to that group, and they can engage within that group and post content and share content within that group itself. So yes, it's definitely possible. You just have to be in touch with us, and we can guide you, and we would be happy to set up that group for you if you wanted it.
I just would also like to invite people to join us or follow us on Facebook, and then join our Facebook group once it gets started, as well as you can link with me on LinkedIn and Twitter, or however you'd like to connect, whatever social media floats your boat, we're there, and we'd love to make that connection and engage with you in that space. I realize that people don't want to go to a new platform all the time, and that's the distributed approach that we've embraced. I'm wondering if anyone else has any questions. I realize we've come up to our time boundary of 30 minutes, and I want to be very aware of people's time limitations, especially this time of year. But I do want to leave just a little bit of space to see if there are any last questions. Mm-hmm. The very last slide has our contact details on it. So I would just also really like to invite everybody to please share your thoughts, your criticisms, constructive criticisms, your any questions that you have that may come up later, or some ideas. And if you'd like to be involved as an interviewee, you are more than welcome, and I would definitely invite you to get in touch. So the Kini web address is kini.org.au, and the email address that goes to both myself and Raymond is contact, CONTACT, @kini.org.au, or you can reach us individually as well. Those emails are out there. Mm-hmm. Or you can reach us through social media, because that's what we do. And with that, I think if there are no more questions, I just want to thank everybody for joining and participating. All right, with that, I want to say thank you. And with that, we're going to close the webinar. And I look forward to hearing from you and engaging with you on Kini.
Thank you.